Rachel Zegler was given the chance of a lifetime with a $200 million project from Disney, but she definitely blew it because by the end she was being torched by the company.
Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, the board of directors, the many executives over there are really just scrambling right now to just get past this movie and call it quits and just move on to other projects.
I didn't get that. I'm like, every single white male is a piece of shit and the woman is the hero and all authority is bad and all business is bad, but government is good as social. And most people don't know what they're watching. She, unfortunately, sort of pulled the curtain back and people knew exactly what was going on.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
But the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Yeah. Everyone is serving a it's just her going, we need to no, you don't need, it's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain. That's what this is. Also, it's very disturbing.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible. In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse. It basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism. The casting to the class politics, the sexual politics, the regime politics, everything about it was liberal. Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, nope, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think we're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige. It's no really knock on her. If you did the autobiography of Malcolm X, would you cast Tom Hanks? If you remade Moana, would you cast a little Irish guy? No, you wouldn't. So that was off the top.
One of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana. And so this bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange.
There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
So I want to get to the politics of it because obviously this was a big thing for Rachel Zegler, the star of the film. It was a big thing for all the left-wingers who made the movie. We have this clip that I want to play for you of Rachel Zegler talking about the love story in Snow White and how it has changed. There was Rachel Zegler talking about this.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and we have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah.
They replace the prince with a common criminal. So there is a prince-like figure, but he's no longer a prince, he's a criminal. And I think this plays first into the class politics of the left, which hates even the very idea of aristocracy or nobility.
Imagine being handed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a $200 million project backed by Disney, no less, and watching it unravel right before your eyes. For Rachel Zegler, the rising star cast as the titular character in Disney's live-action Snow White remake, this nightmare became her reality. What was supposed to be a crowning achievement in her career quickly spiraled into a disaster of epic proportions. The film's critical and commercial failure sent shockwaves through Hollywood, but that was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, a dramatic game of blame and retaliation unfolded, with Zegler allegedly finding herself at the center of a corporate storm. Accusations of blacklisting, covert smear campaigns, and high-level retribution soon surfaced, painting a picture of an industry where dreams can be crushed just as quickly as they're made. This is a story not just of a failed movie, but of power dynamics, broken trust, and the devastating consequences when a beloved fairy tale becomes a cautionary tale. Rachel Zegler was once hailed as a breakthrough talent, ready to bring a fresh interpretation to the classic Snow White story. With Disney's backing, she was poised to become the new face of inclusivity and modern storytelling, embodying the studio's ambitious vision to reinvent its cherished fairy tale for a new generation. Fans and industry insiders alike were captivated by her potential, seeing her casting as a bold step toward diversifying Disney's iconic lineup of princesses. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly golden opportunity lay unforeseen challenges that would soon spiral into a storm of controversy. What began as a dream role quickly unraveled into a high-stakes battle between creative reinterpretation and fan expectations, leaving Zegler caught in the crossfire. Little did she know, this opportunity, meant to cement her status as Hollywood's rising star, would soon turn into her biggest nightmare, threatening not only her career but also her place in the entertainment industry. When the first trailers for the live-action Snow White dropped, fans were far from thrilled. Almost immediately, social media platforms were flooded with complaints about the film's apparent lack of whimsy and nostalgia, key elements that many associated with the original 1937 animated classic. Viewers expressed disappointment, claiming that the new adaptation seemed to abandon the magical charm and fairy tale wonder in favor of heavy-handed social messaging. The backlash only intensified once the film finally premiered. Both critics and general audiences voiced their dissatisfaction, lamenting the glaring absence of the lighthearted enchantment that had made the original so beloved. For many, the movie felt like a shadow of its former self, trading timeless wonder for what some perceived as forced modernization. Adding fuel to the fire were Rachel Zegler's comments during press junkets. In interviews, she openly dismissed the iconic prince character as creepy and labeled the timeless romance between Snow White and the prince as outdated and irrelevant to contemporary audiences. While her remarks may have been intended to highlight the film's progressive updates, they instead sparked a massive firestorm online. Fans of the original film felt alienated by her words, interpreting them as dismissive of the cherished traditions and values embedded in the classic story. Overnight, Zegler went from being seen as an optimistic voice for fresh interpretations to becoming the central figure blamed for the film's perceived disrespect toward Disney's storied legacy. Her candidness became a lightning rod for criticism, further polarizing public opinion and deepening the divide between those who embraced the remake's modern twists and those who longed for the nostalgic magic of the original. Faced with a PR nightmare, Disney scrambled to contain the damage, exploring every possible avenue to mitigate the fallout. In the early stages of the crisis, some executives floated the idea of shifting marketing dollars to streaming releases, hoping to quietly bury Snow White and distance the company from the backlash by allowing the film to fade into obscurity on a less prominent platform. Internally, there were heated debates about whether this strategy would be enough to rehabilitate the brand's image or if more drastic measures were needed. Yet, as shareholder complaints mounted and fan outrage escalated on social media, the narrative within Disney began to shift. High-ranking insiders, under immense pressure to explain the failure, started pointing fingers at Rachel Zegler. Privately, sources close to the matter revealed that certain executives discussed ways to isolate her from upcoming roles, both within Disney and its subsidiary brands. These discussions allegedly included informal warnings to industry partners about the risks of working with Zegler, effectively signaling that collaborating with her could jeopardize their relationship with one of Hollywood's most powerful studios. This behind-the-scenes maneuvering underscored the growing tension between corporate self-preservation and individual accountability, leaving Zegler caught in the crossfire of a high-stakes blame game. The situation also highlighted the precarious position stars find themselves in when their public statements clash with the expectations of legacy-driven studios like Disney, where protecting the brand often takes precedence over supporting even its brightest new talents. In recent weeks, rumors have been swirling that Disney had effectively blacklisted Rachel Zegler, leaving her future in Hollywood uncertain. According to sources close to the actress, several prospective collaborators abruptly stopped returning her calls without explanation, and negotiations for multiple high-profile film and TV roles mysteriously broke down just as they seemed on the verge of finalization. Industry insiders revealed that in at least 2 notable instances, production teams were warned by Disney executives to steer clear of Zegler, with vague yet ominous suggestions that the studio might withhold critical support, marketing budgets, or even distribution deals if she were attached to those projects. These claims gained traction when a well-placed source within one of the productions claimed that Disney's alleged disapproval was enough to make producers reconsider their casting decisions entirely. The situation has left Zegler not only struggling to secure new opportunities, but also grappling with the emotional toll of seeing once promising roles vanish into thin air. For an actress who was once hailed as a breakthrough talent and positioned as the face of inclusivity in modern cinema, this sudden freeze-out serves as a stark reminder of how fragile careers can be in an industry dominated by corporate power dynamics. As the whispers of blacklisting grow louder, many are left wondering whether Disney's actions stem from genuine concerns about her public image, or if they represent a calculated attempt to distance themselves from a project and a performer they now view as tarnished goods. Social media has been ablaze with passionate discourse, as fans and critics alike weigh in on the growing controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler and Disney. Some users have taken to platforms like Twitter and Instagram to lambast Disney for allegedly throwing Zegler under the bus, accusing the entertainment giant of scapegoating her to sidestep accountability for what many see as a mismanaged remake. These supporters argue that Zegler was simply following the promotional script handed down by Disney, echoing the studio's own initial push for a progressive reimagining of Snow White. On the flip side, however, there are those who accuse Zegler of playing the victim, suggesting that her candid remarks about the outdated nature of the 1937 original alienated core audiences and disrespected a beloved children's film that shaped multiple generations. Hashtags such as #JusticeForRachel and #DisneyOwnsUp have gained significant traction, with countless threads urging Disney to acknowledge its own creative missteps rather than blame the film's failure on its lead actress. This groundswell of support for Zegler highlights not only her enduring popularity among younger demographics, but also a broader frustration with how corporate studios handle talent when projects go awry. Skeptics, however, counter that Zegler is reaping what she sowed, pointing to her perceived disregard for fan nostalgia and her willingness to critique elements of a story cherished by millions. As debates rage on, petitions and online campaigns have emerged, calling for greater transparency from Disney while accusing the company of wielding its enormous corporate clout to crush dissent. Whether this digital outcry will translate into tangible change or influence corporate decision-makers remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. The standoff underscores a new era in fan-studio relations, where social media serves as both a battleground and a megaphone for demanding accountability from entertainment giants. Hollywood insiders offer varied perspectives on the situation, highlighting the complexity of the industry's dynamics. Some argue that blacklisting Rachel Zegler could provoke significant backlash from her substantial and loyal fan base, many of whom are younger viewers who resonate with her energy and progressive outlook. These fans have taken to social media in droves, accusing Disney of scapegoating an actress who is simply following the studio's own promotional playbook. They point out that Zegler's earlier statements about modernizing Snow White, framing her as a leader rather than a damsel in distress, were not just her personal opinions, but part of Disney's official narrative at the time. This disconnect between messaging and blame has left many questioning whether the studio is willing to sacrifice long-term goodwill for short-term damage control. On the other hand, some industry veterans maintain that Disney, with its near-limitless resources and stable of bankable franchises, can weather any negative press if it means preserving its broader brand image. After all, Disney has faced controversies before and emerged relatively unscathed, thanks in large part to its dominance across multiple entertainment sectors, from theme parks to streaming platforms. For these insiders, the Snow White debacle underscores a painful but undeniable truth. Even the most iconic properties can flop spectacularly if they alienate their core audience. The film's attempt to retrofit a beloved fairy tale with heavy-handed modern messaging seems to have backfired, leaving fans feeling disconnected from the magic that once defined Disney's storytelling. Adding another layer to the debate is the question of precedent. If Disney's alleged blacklisting of Zegler becomes public knowledge or sets a trend, future performers might feel pressured to sanitize their public personas and censor their creative input for fear of upsetting powerful studios. This chilling effect could stifle legitimate artistic critique and discourage actors from engaging meaningfully with the material they're promoting. Conversely, others suggest that this incident might serve as a wake-up call for Hollywood, prompting studios to rethink how they balance nostalgia with contemporary values without alienating the very audiences they seek to attract. Regardless of where one stands in this heated discourse, the Snow White fiasco serves as a cautionary tale about the precarious tightrope Hollywood walks when reimagining classic stories. It also highlights the immense power wielded by corporate giants like Disney, whose decisions can make or break careers while shaping the cultural landscape for years to come. Beyond Zegler's plight, the controversy highlights a deeper cultural rift about how far modern updates can go before beloved heritage is lost. As Disney continues to push for contemporary relevance, questions arise about the coexistence of nostalgia and modern values within a single property. The debate centers on whether reimagining classic tales to reflect today's social and political sensibilities risks alienating the very audiences who hold these stories dear. For many, the magic of Disney lies in its ability to transport viewers to timeless worlds where fantasy and innocence reign supreme. However, others argue that updating these narratives to address modern issues like gender equality, class dynamics, and inclusivity is not only necessary but vital for keeping them relevant in an ever-evolving cultural landscape. This tension raises critical concerns. At what point do these reinterpretations cross the line from refreshing to unrecognizable? Can a balance truly be struck between honoring the original material and appealing to contemporary ideals? Moreover, the Snow White fiasco underscores how easily attempts to modernize can backfire when core elements, like the whimsy of fairy tale romance or the charm of iconic characters, are diminished or recast as outdated relics. In this tug-of-war between tradition and progress, the challenge for studios like Disney becomes clear. How do they retain the essence of what made these stories legendary while still pushing boundaries to connect with new generations? As audiences grow increasingly vocal about their expectations, the entertainment industry faces a daunting task, navigating this delicate equilibrium without sacrificing either the nostalgia that fuels lifelong fandoms or the progressive values that define our era. The saga of Rachel Zegler and Disney's Snow White remake serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balancing act stars must perform when navigating the space between creative reinterpretation and fan nostalgia. This tightrope walk is fraught with risks, where even the best intentions can lead to catastrophic fallout. For Zegler, the opportunity to redefine a classic character like Snow White was meant to cement her status as a trailblazer in Hollywood, but instead, it has left her career hanging by a thread. Whether she can overcome this alleged unofficial blacklist remains an open question, one that hinges on her ability to find allies willing to challenge Disney's long shadow. What is certain, however, is that Hollywood operates in a realm where power dynamics shift rapidly and perceptions of blame or victimhood are often fluid. In this case, the controversy surrounding Snow White has cast a harsh light on how corporate interests can overshadow individual talent, leaving fans and industry insiders alike questioning who truly bears responsibility for the film's failure. Was it Zegler's comments during press junkets that alienated audiences? Or was it Disney's mismanagement and overreach in trying to modernize a beloved classic? The answers may never be clear-cut, but what this ordeal makes evident is that in a town built on illusions and driven by profit, the lines between villain and victim can blur with astonishing speed. As the dust settles, viewers are left to wonder whether the real poison apple wasn't served on the big screen at all, but rather behind the closed doors of executive offices, where decisions about creativity, legacy, and accountability are made far from public view. This cautionary tale underscores the fragility of stardom and raises uncomfortable questions about the future of storytelling in an era dominated by corporate gatekeepers. Will artists continue to push boundaries, or will they retreat into safer, more sanitized narratives to avoid similar fates? Only time will tell, but for now, Rachel Zegler's story stands as both a warning and a call for reflection within the entertainment industry.